Right, Julianne, we're back upstairs. We're having a look through Creative Nature Branding Through the Ages. There's a lot of colour on show here. It's really interesting to look at. Tell us a little bit, just a top level kind of summary of how the look of the brand has evolved. And then we're going to bring in Ellie to talk about some more specifics around how the packaging has changed.
Yeah, the brand has definitely evolved completely from the beginning. So this isn't even the beginning. This is a stage in, actually. But after we did a lot of the focus groups and we got a branding agency involved, we understood more our customer avatar and also what our customer wanted to see to be able to pick it up off shelf. So you'll see the amazing colours that have changed and the wording that's used, the fonts that's used as well.
Okay. So Ellie, can you tell us about some of the specific things that have changed in relation to things such as customer feedback or focus groups, things like that, the way in which they've come to light and how they now look on packaging?
Yeah, so probably the main thing you'd notice is the logo has changed quite dramatically, and a lot of feedback we were getting from that was that it wasn't easy enough to read, the font was a bit outdated, so we've kept that as similar as possible, but that's probably the main thing that's changed. Obviously if you look at kind of the old branding, it is quite colourful, but because it uses a lot of pastel colours, we found that on shelf it didn't stand out as much as it could and as much as it deserved to. And then the other thing is, on the old kind of packaging we would list every single USP out in a very similar way. So we've got allergen friendly, gluten-free, dairy-free, wheat-free, but we've kind of summarised that into just one single stamp, which is delicious without doubt, top 14 allergen-free, which is our catchphrase for the brand.
And this has all come about from asking the right questions, really not just taking for granted that what you've put out there is doing the job it should do.
Yeah, so you definitely have to listen to what the customers have got to say about the packaging, because at the end of the day it's that kind of person that's going to be buying it, so it needs to stand out to who we're marketing it towards.
And looking at some of the newer packaging, it feels like it's kind of got a bit more playful. There's a bit more kind of actual photography alongside the colour and the illustrative stuff. Yeah. What's influenced that kind of thing?
We wanted to communicate as well that the product is really very tasty, and the best way to do that is by using photography, so that's how we wanted to incorporate that into the brand.
Okay. And Julianne, when you look at this and you see kind of where stuff was early on and where it is now, what are your thoughts, and kind of where does this get your mind going when you're thinking about where the brand's going to look, what the brand's going to look like in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years kind of thing?
Well, when we were first going through the whole branding agency, they came up with sort of 4 different scenarios, and it was really interesting to see because each route was so different. However, they were still incorporating all the key parts that we had got from the customer focus group. Now, we wanted to create a brand that didn't need updating constantly year on year. We wanted to create that sort of timeless element as well. So that safety stamp, that top 14 allergen free, hopefully will stay throughout the years, and the colours, the vibrancy, we intended to keep that throughout the range. And as we have add-ons, like we've got the Norbles over there, and you'll see the bright colours have come from the rest of the brand, the catchy name Norbles, our catchy slogan Nibble My Norbles, which is again something that's very playful, and we wanted that to convey across the brand and across all the ranges.
And what have you learned about not trying to do too much with the branding and the look of a product that you could share?
For me, well, I learned a lot from Ellie actually, when she was constantly saying, go like less is more. So for example, trying to put so much on pack, because I would be like, oh, I really want the brand to say everything we're free from, and I would want to say it's vegan, and I would want to say it's high protein, all of these things. But she would say to me, but the consumer's never actually going to understand that and take it in 3 seconds, which is your window that you have to be able to get into the consumer's mind. So if you can pick one thing, you're probably going to pick the flavour and the brand logo. So it's got to stand out enough, and like super salted caramel, it sounds good. We've got things like the whole grain banana bread mix, things like that make you want to eat it, are so important.
So one final thing, Julianne, with all that's gone on with the branding history and and what's gone into it. What's your advice for businesses who are wanting to take a look at their brands but maybe a little bit scared, apprehensive, unsure where to start? What advice do you have for them to be able to approach this in a constructive way that allows them to come out the other side with something that's going to do a better job for them?
I would say, again, going back to understanding your customer, it's so important, and looking at what the shelf looks like at the moment. So if you've got a product in particular, obviously it doesn't work as well for service businesses, but products, you could go to a supermarket shelf, you could look at all the brands there, and you could understand, what do I need to do to stand out against them? You could then do a mock-up and put it on shelf and see if your brand even has any standout, and that, I'd say, is key. Branding agencies are expensive. However, it's so important, even if you can't have a branding agency, finding someone who has an eye for design, who is really creative, getting them on board is so important early on.
Great advice there. Well, thanks for showing us this. It's really interesting to see how a history of a brand comes together, and you can really see what kind of journey it's been on, and such wonderfully creative and colourful packaging as well. So thanks for showing us that.
Thank you.
Cheers, Ellie.